Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Recollection Step, a Grand Archive TCG podcast, part of the Maindeck podcast family. I'm Dan.
And I'm Taylor. And today we are going to be talking about streamer burnout and how you can avoid this when you're making content.
Hang on. I didn't know this was going to be like a therapy session for me. Hopefully we have a different plan for the day.
No, we do. Actually, no, we're going to be talking about all the cool new mechanics popping up in Mercurial Heart. We're actually just I'm not even going to ask Dan how he's doing. We're just going to dive into it because there's a ton of stuff here. The Weebs of the Shore released a design note article for Mercurial Heart here with a ton of information, a bunch of spoilers, a bunch of new mechanics. So I think, just dive in so that we're not here for like 3 hours. Cause I think you and I could probably talk about this for like the next 2 days if we wanted to.
Yeah, this would be a super easy topic to we could probably do an hour on like every single card revealed. I agree. I think it's probably a good idea to just zip through. But Taylor, I know we were talking a little bit before we actually hit the record button here about our next week's episode. If you want to tease that for people before we get too into this discussion, so they know what to expect.
Yeah, absolutely. So the beginning of this design note article has a section on both of the new Recollection decks that are releasing alongside Mercurial Heart, Silvie Slime Sovereign and Tristan's Shadow Dancer. We're going to go over a couple of those cards today. But our next episode in 2 weeks, actually in 2 weeks this time, since we missed last episode, is going to be a deep dive into these two decks and kind of what you can kind of expect from them. How it looks like they're very powerful from these initial spoilers. So we're going to kind of go into like how these are going to be like meta relevant, where they might fit into that picture, and kind of where you could even take these decks from there. So that's the plan.
And I'm looking forward to that because we'll have the whole list all fully revealed at that point, and I think that these decks are going to be just really fun to talk about, given what we've seen so far.
Based on these spoilers, they're like spicy as heck, right? Like, let's just dive in. Like, Silvie, I think, is like what everybody has been clamoring for so far. Just diving in, right? Like, she's got a new spirit and a new level 3 that's been spoiled here.
The hype was so insane when they revealed. There were people who had called it too, but they revealed Spirit of Slime, which is the new level 0 spirit. It's our first new level 0 spirit since set 2, I guess. But this is the weirdest one, where it doesn't unlock any element on its own. It simply lets you play slimes of any basic element. Anything with the slime tag.
Yes, it's any slime subtype on any card, actually, not even just allies, right? Like, there's a couple cards that are spoiled that have their actions with slime subtypes. It's pretty sick. I'm really excited to see this too, because it really shows that like they've got a really good balance they can work around with now. Like, it opens up a lot of design space. That's what I'm trying to say. Opens up a lot of design space instead of like making something super archetypical or like forcing people into one element for certain things. Like, there's just so many ways you can play around with these spirits, and I'm really excited to see what they do in the future. But for now, like, this is kind of insane, because being able to throw blue slime and red slime and green slime all into the same deck is baller. Like, that.
Yeah.
That's so sweet.
In the design stream too, they talked about how this design stream. It was the anniversary stream where Silidar came on and gave a PowerPoint presentation on Grand Archives design for a little bit. It was dope though. It was like there's a lot of really interesting information, and one of them was how these recollection decks are an opportunity for the team to have this sort of confined space where they can design these sort of tribal or typal style decks where they don't have the restrictions of having to fill a set with a bunch of new mechanics and provide cards for a bunch of different archetypes. They can just kind of focus in and be like, if you like slimes, We're going to make a slime deck. And if you can imagine in the future of recollection decks, once you've seen Spirit of Slime here, the other types of spirits you can see enabling different types of decks. They said specifically to Tamer, the reason they wanted to include Tamer in the game at all was because Tamer was the sort of the de facto tribal hero, the tribal champion, where they can just go, yeah, okay, tamers like animals. So here's a new type of tamer. This tamer likes to collect squirrels. This tamer likes to collect capybara. And you can have a capybara. This is canon, by the way. This is confirmed. There will be a capybara tribal recollection deck. That's not true. That's not true. I'm sorry. I don't want to lie. We lie on this podcast enough already, actually.
It's fine. The viewers or the listeners and the viewers, I suppose, know. They get it. They understand that you can count on this time next year there being a capybara recollection deck. You heard it here first.
Yep. Silidar, right? You heard that. Okay. And that's it. By the way, that's totally a shout out at our good friend and other fellow content creator Byfall, who is the capybara. The capybara of the Grand Archive world. So
yes. All right. Okay. We kind of went on a very long tangent there.
That was important.
No, I mean, not just all of that. Yeah.
Well, you're right.
So keep us on track. The Spirit of Slime is very cool. And it leads up into Silvie level 3, Slime Sovereign, which is your kind of normal level 3 Terra, 25 health, cool tamer stuff. With the ability of on enter, the next slime ally card you activate this turn costs 2 less to activate and enters the field with 2 additional buff counters on it. And so that's a pretty dope ability. And on top of that, you ignore the elemental requirements of all advanced element slime cards you activate. So right now we aren't really, before this we hadn't seen any advanced element slime cards, but there's a bunch that they threw out with this deck as well. So we've seen stuff so far from Crux and Arcane and Luxem and Terra all have cool new slimes that they've showed off here as part of these design notes. And
just to head off speculation, a reminder, one of the things we learned, the things we lied about in a previous podcast, in our last podcast where we talked about our wishes for Mercurial Heart, we had Silidar come in and correct us that advanced elements are based on the ley lines of the world that the heroes, the champions are in at the time. And we were saying it would be really cool to have like arcane cards in Mercurial Heart. Well, there is no arcane ley line on Azoth. So there will not be any arcane cards in Mercurial Heart. But I'm bringing that up now because it's relevant for the Silvie deck. The Silvie deck specifically takes place on Cambria, which was the Dawn of Ashes world. So if you're out there waiting, you're thinking, I can't wait to see the Astra slime, the Umbra slime, the Neo slime. You're not going to be seeing those in this deck because those are the ley lines from Azoth. Cambria has the ones that Taylor mentioned, from set 1.
Yep. Yes. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't really a lie. Like we called that what we wanted to see. And
yeah, that's true.
I still want to see new Crux cards in Mercurial Heart, even if there aren't going to be any. Like, so.
Yeah. You can still want it. That's fine. Yeah. You're allowed to want it, but
exactly. But let's dive into some of these slimes here too. So there's some really cool things that she's got going on in this deck. She has a new red slime. It is not a actual red slime. It's not an adult red slime. It is a baby red slime, which is a 2-cost tamer animal slime. Notice it's an animal and not a beast as well. So a little bit of extra synergy too with her level 2, since that's included in the recollection deck. So you're going to have multiple animals and beasts to help her draw cards when you get there. But anyway, this has a class bonus on attack. You may discard a card if you do draw a card into your memory. And then if the discarded card was a fire element card, Baby Slime gets +1 power until end of turn. And it's also a 2/1. So this is really sweet because like the first thing you think of is like Hasty Messenger. All the cool power that decks have been using her for before this. Silvie gets to like double up on if she wants to. Well, no, that's not true. Well, it's kind of true. If she's mono fire, if she starts on Spirit of Fire instead of her cool new Spirit of Slimes, she can double up on the effect because she can play Hasty Messenger and then also Baby Red Slime. But it also just gives her, a personal Hasty Messenger for the slime deck too, which is really sweet. helping you discard the floating memory cards you've got to help her level up efficiently. Also getting in for some extra power, which is really dope if you're discarding fire cards. So a lot of cool stuff going on there. Obviously, the big difference here is that you can't really like pop off with it as much as you would like a hasty messenger, because you're drawing the card into memory instead of your hand, which is not, I mean, it's not like a huge, right? It's not like you're drawing like 3 cards into hand or anything like that, but it is something you're going to have to like kind of watch out for and be aware of as you're playing with this slime. And it's going to your memory, and you can't use it to like fuel more slimes for that turn necessarily. You're going to have to wait till you pick it back up on your next turn.
Yeah, this I think it's really cool that they've introduced these baby slimes. We're not going to go through all of them. We'll save that for next episode. But these baby slimes as animals to just allow you to run the regular slimes, which are always beasts prior to this, and have sort of a combination of them. Because that's the crucial thing for Silvie level 2 is to try and maintain that. And I think people will find too when they're playing this deck, there will be, the opponents are going to know that you have Silvie level 2, and there's always going to be a bit of a tension, a bit of a struggle in trying to keep the number of animals and beasts on your board that you want to. Baby red slime, of course, is really sweet too, because now it is class bonus. I don't know if you mentioned that, but Hasty Messenger is not a class bonus effect, but baby red slime is. So you already want to be level 1 at least when you're playing this. But the nice thing is, because it's an animal and because you're using the regular Silvie level 1, comes down as a 3/2 if it's the first animal you play that turn, gets that buff counter, and then attacks, and then can potentially get another +1, which is like, I mean, it's a pretty aggressive play, which I think is really sweet.
I mean, we all wanted to like try and make Embertail Squirrel work, but that card is just like probably bad.
This is what if Embertail Squirrel was good.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Yep. Yeah. And so that's exactly what we want to see. It's a lot of fun.
Yep. I'm very happy about that. Now, Taylor, are there going to be any ways, let's say the opponent is doing a really good job of killing all of our slimes, just keep getting them, like, we're running out of cards. Maybe they're even attacking us in the face because we don't, they got rid of so many slimes of ours. What do we do about that?
Oh, you should have drawn your Song of Nurturing the turn before.
No.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I know. It was a fun joke, and now the moment is it's still here.
It's still here. We're still good.
We're going to you're gonna play a fun new card, a water card, which you get to play because of Spirit of Slime, enabling your slime cards of all basic elements, called Gather Slimes, which is a 2-cost slow speed action tamer slime skill. So it's a non-allied slime card, and with class bonus fast activation, you reveal the top 5 cards of your deck. You recover X, where X is the amount of slime allied cards revealed this way, and you put a slime allied card from among them into your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. So you're going to dig 5 cards deep for whatever slime you want, which is a pretty good way to kind of rebuild that board, if I say so. That's a lot of selection for like a pretty low cost. You usually have to put a lot of effort into like seeing that many cards at once. Like if you're playing Tide Diviner, for instance, you have to be level 3 before you're seeing still not that many cards.
So we already have, I'm just totally blanking on its name now. We already have the 1-cost dig for an animal or beast in Tamer. You know this card, right?
Oh, yeah. So normal.
Yep.
You see,
we play so much Tamer. We're like, we totally know the name of
1-cost. Some sort of like, I don't know. It doesn't matter. You only see 4 cards with that though, too. I think, right? 5? I'm pretty sure it's 4. I don't know. I just know that Mitch missed on it once, and it was really funny.
I'm actually going to find it right now and tell our podcast listeners who are shouting at the screen, because we have our huge Tamer fans who know what this card is, and they're like, I can't believe this podcast that I listen to and I put so much stock into can't remember the name of my favorite Tamer card in the world, which I was really hoping I would find it by now, and then I would be able to slip it in here as I was just talking. And is it called?
You're gonna get there.
It's what?
You're going to get there.
I am going to
believe
get
in
there.
you.
I am going to get there in the greatest podcast content we've ever
Blissful
made.
Calling is what it's called. I almost threw that one out there earlier, actually. But I was like, that's like a defensive spell. It's definitely not. It is the selection spell. It is 5 cards too.
Yeah,
it
is
also 5 cards.
Yep. I have played this card more than you. I remembered it was 5.
You've
at least
played it a lot more than me. That is correct. Yes.
I have punished myself with Silvie a few times. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know why. I just couldn't remember the name of Blissful Calling whatsoever. But okay, so anyway, Gather Slimes is like a Blissful Calling, but it costs 1 more. It only finds slimes, but it has tacked on this completely not insignificant extra text of Recover X, where X is the amount of slime ally cards revealed this way. Now, do note that this says slime ally and not slime cards. So right away, we thought, okay, so like Gather Slimes, you just find more Gather Slimes and you can heal a ton.
Just go to town.
It doesn't quite. You are going to miss a little bit sometimes. This isn't always going to be like a heal 5, but it's often going to be pretty good. I think you're going to often hit somewhere between 3 and 4 recovery off of this just out of the starter deck. If you're just the Recollection deck as it's built is likely going to be, given that it looks like it's got a huge slime focus. Seems like it'll be a pretty reasonable recover. Plus, it replaces itself with the slime of your choice. Which can be your advanced element slimes too, which from what we've seen are complete game winners.
Yep. Well, yeah. So some quick math, right? So we've seen there's 3 baby slimes. We're only talking about 1 today, but there's 3 new baby slimes that were spoiled. There's the 3 original slimes. So that's 4 of each is 26. If you're just filling, or 24, pardon me, if you're just filling your deck up with all the available slimes. And then there's also been 4 advanced element slimes revealed as well. And if you're just going to play all of those, that's 40 slimes, right? So that's 2/3 of your deck that you could make be a slime ally card to potentially recover off of Gather Slimes here.
Yeah. And I mean, is this all the slimes? Well, we'll have to see. We'll talk about it next episode. But I mean, either way, there's going to be an awful lot of slimes available to you to play. But the big ones, the big winners, are these boys in the advanced element slime category. Let's talk about a couple of these. We picked out 2. I think these are all actually really good, but
these are all
picked out 2 to talk about today.
Well, no, I mean in proper tamer fashion, I think the Terra slime is probably the worst one spoiled. So we'll talk about 2 of the better ones.
Okay.
So I'm sorry. That was a low blow to Tamer fans. Wow. I apologize.
Wow. And you know what? It's okay. Tamer fans, don't worry. Taylor is going to get his just desserts here in a couple of weeks. It's going to be pretty glorious. I think I am excited to absolutely dunk on him at our locals with slime.
Somebody's going to own me with a key slime pudding, and I will get my just desserts. Yes.
Oh, nice.
Thank you. Yep.
All right. Let's talk about ethereal slime first.
Okay. Yes. Let's talk about that.
Ethereal slime is a 2-cost 2/2 ally tamer beast slime. So the best thing about this, before I jump into the best thing about all of these, each of these advanced element slimes, they basically took the general flavor of that advanced element and just distilled it into a goopy slime ally. And so in proper Crux fashion, this card is, I think, above fine. Certainly very good.
I would say ethereal slime is fine. Yes, that's how I would describe it.
So it's not, ethereal slime isn't fine, it's Crux fine, which is our new level of fine, which is kind of broken, actually really good. So
it's a lot better than Evan Fine.
That is an inside joke that nobody's going to understand.
That was just for me and you.
Yeah. All right, fair enough. Ethereal slime has Pride 3, which, okay, so right away, but I have to be level 3 to play this. Okay, but I think people are going to really start to latch on to de-leveling as counterplay. I think you're going to need some counterplay against this deck. So you can always de-level your opponent. They can be at Silvie Slime Sovereign, but you can make them level 2 with something like Dusklight Communion. Mm-hmm. So his Pride 3 has Stealth, sure, has True Sight. Why not? It is Crux. Yeah, it's Crux. Crux just gets just keywords for fun. Just like in the Majestic Spirit, right? Just like, sure, just throw them on. Class bonus on enter. You may banish a Tamer card from your material deck. Very Crux. If you do, draw a card, very Crux, and put a buff counter on Ethereal Slime. Why not? That's Crux too. Crux can do anything.
Hell yeah.
But you know what? let's toss a Majestic Spirit ability on there just for fun too. Level 5+, prevent all non-combat damage that would be dealt to Ethereal Slime. No, you're not going to burn this out with some a Rhapsody or a Fireball or something. Nope. It's just going to be there. You have to fight it, but you can't because it's stealthed.
Because it's stealthed.
Oh, Ethereal Slime is so sweet.
It's dope. It's a 2/2 with the buff counter you're going to give it, because you should be giving it that buff counter. It's going to be a 3/3.
And
it's all
the two buff
cost.
counters from Silvie.
Yes. So you can play it for free and make it a 5/5 stealth true sight, draw you a card, and then also just like grab some tamer items and become level 5. And now all of a sudden they can't like even fireball it or anything like that. It's just insane.
This thing of all of these slimes that we've seen, this is the one that like becomes just a proper aggressive menace that is just like this thing is so hard to deal with, and can actually just crack in and can hit anything because it has true sight. Also, the opponent cannot vanish from sight and stay away from Ethereal Slime, which is something that is certainly relevant in the metagame right now as well. So this card's awesome. This slime is wild.
This almost makes me want to play Tamer.
Almost, it's so close.
Which is about the highest compliment I could give it. So.
Which isn't surprising, given that the only thing that would make you want to play Tamer Taylor is a Crux card.
I'm waiting for my Crux Tamer champion. When that day comes, that'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah,
that's when I play Tamer for sure.
Let's talk about how about an Arcane Slime though? Let's talk about Storm Slime.
Let's talk about Storm Slime for sure. A 2-cost Arcane Slime Tamer Beast Slime, Pride 3. On enter, as a spell, deal damage to target unit equal to the number of slime cards in your banishment. And then also class bonus on death. You may draw or you may banish 2 cards at random from your memory if you do draw 2 cards, and it's a 3/1. So just like you're going to start off, you're going to go to level 3, you're going to play your Ethereal Slime for free, hit them for 5, and just have a really good time. And then you're going to play Storm Slime for 2, and you probably banished some slimes going to level 3. Let's say you banished 5 of them. I have no idea, but you're going to drop this thing, hit them for 5 off the on enter ability, and then you're going to attack for 3 with the Storm Slime 2. And if they're still alive for whatever reason, they have to kill the Storm Slime because like 3 damage is a lot as well. And then you just get to draw more cards. Like, so this is also just a bonkers card.
I want to be clear about that line. That was a 3 cards in hand is all that was necessary for that line, because you're going to play the Ethereal for free from the level up, and then you're going to draw a card from the Ethereal, and then you're going to put 2 down to play Storm Slime as well. 3 cards from hand. That was a 13 damage swing that gets through stealth. In almost 10 of the damage gets through stealth. If they vanished, the Storm Slime can't attack, but it can still do its. By the way, it's on enter as a spell. That's a new thing. That gives it, all that means is that Spell Shroud actually can stop this, which is good. There should be counterplay to some of what's happening here.
Yep.
And otherwise, you just pushed 1,000,000 damage. And if they are going to have a hard time killing the Ethereal Slime, if the Storm Slime dies, you can banish 2 more random cards to draw 2 cards. If you have a follow-up Storm Slime, well, you probably just made it even stronger. This very arcane card, it's just like, it's going to do a lot of damage, and it's only going to get worse eventually for you.
Yes. Well, I mean, that's the thing, right? Like if, let's say you have Ethereal Slime, Storm Slime, any other card at 4 when you go to 3 instead of just the 3 cards, right? Now all of a sudden you can play a Storm Slime and still hold a Storm Slime in hand. So if you go to attack for 3 and they like ignite the soul, your Storm Slime, or just kill it somehow, right? Before it gets its damage in, you just draw 2 more cards and play another Storm Slime. Like,
that's so gross.
It's insane. And you probably banished like 1 or 2 slimes off your memory, right? So like, the second one is hitting for more. Like, there's a lot of powerful stuff going on in this Silvie Recollection deck. It's very cool.
I'm excited next episode to dive in and really talk about everything that is going to be here once we have the full list, because obviously if the rest of the decks are anything like these, this is, I mean, like I've been saying on a lot of channels, the metagame, like a week after the set releases, is going to be, I think, the most fun we've ever seen in Grand Archive. There are so many viable decks that are forming right now that it's just going to be it's going to be a blast.
Yep. Yes. Yeah. 100%. Either that or it's just going to be like 95% Silvie, but people are going to enjoy that quite a bit, I think. So
you know what? She deserves it at this point.
Yeah. It's time. It's fair. Let's move on though. There's been a lot of cool slime cards, but also people are insanely hyped about the new Tristan showing up, because for all the Silvie fans out there, there's probably 0.75 Tristan fans, which is still a lot of Tristan fans.
That's still a lot.
So, yeah, she got not only did she get a new level 3, well, actually, we'll go into a little bit more later. She got 2 new level 3s, and she got a new level 1 and a new level 2.
Yeah, a lot of Tristan love here.
Tristan is eating very good with this Recollection deck. And actually, I would say her levels are like kind of insane. So her
they
level
are certainly on the same par as some of the best champions in the game right now.
100%. Yeah,
easily.
So Tristan level 1, underhanded, an assassin. On enter, you put a prep counter on Tristan. If you don't, you gain agility 3 for this turn. And agility 3 is a new keyword. Agility X just means return X cards from your memory to your hand at the beginning of the end phase. So agility 3, you get to return 3 cards from your memory to your hand. And that ability is like kind of bonkers, I would say, because you can just do so many things with that. You can like play an ally and then scoop those cards back up and hold up like favorable wins or some sort of protection, reclaim, whatever, right? You can play 2 allies and do that as well. Like,
hey, is anyone out here thinking about Academy Guide right now, like I am?
Yes, 100%. Tristan and Academy Guide, I think, are going to be very, very good friends. Or you can just get a prep counter, right? Like, let's say you're on, like, you just want to hold up a bunch of interaction, you don't care to play an ally or whatever. Like, maybe, I don't know, maybe you went first. I'm not sure what the situation is. Like, there's lots of reasons why you might just get a prep counter because she has a lot of cards that interact with prep counters as well.
So Sil had in the stream had some interesting insight into this that I think makes a lot of sense. So like the prep counter will make sense for everything else in her kit, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And I think the big thing is when you're going later, when your plan is to go to level 3, Tristan, you're probably going to want the prep counter for a number of reasons. However, that agility 3 allows Tristan to play an aggro low level deck and just use that agility 3 in order to play things like planted explosives faster. Just like start pumping stuff out at your opponent, pumping damage sources at them to overwhelm them quickly. And we will look at some more cards in a little bit that you might want to be thinking about for this as well, because fire is going to continue to be an aggressive element to play. And I think, those types of decks, you're going to go, yeah, I'm just going to agility 3, because then I'm going to fast speed just blast more damage at them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is sweet.
Yeah. It enables you to use so many resources so early.
Yeah.
If you do get the prep counter, it makes enabling her level 2 a little bit easier though. Tristan Hired Blade, which is Tristan lineage. And then on enter, if Tristan has 2 or more preparation counters on her, draw a card. Then if Tristan has 4 or more preparation counters on her, draw an additional card. And then your normal 22 health for an assassin. And that ability is so good. I have, as much of a Silvie hater as I am, I have long said that Silvie level 2 is one of the strongest cards in the game.
You have said
because
that. I can vouch for it.
Thank you. You basically get to level up for free if you meet the conditions, right? And granted, the conditions of Silvie's level 2 to draw both cards is a bit more difficult than most payoffs require, that we've seen so far that are really good. But drawing 2 cards is just a heck of an ability, right? And Tristan says, just put a bunch of prep counters on me. Your opponent can't interact with that, as far as we know, and level me up to 2 and draw 2 cards. Like, just, you get a free level up essentially. It's insane. It's so good. And if you got the floating memory for it, like, your hand just explodes. Like, you're gonna go from like a 5 or 6 card hand to a 7 or an 8 card hand if you're leveling up with floating memory, and that's bonkers.
Yeah.
At that point in the game, it's just so insane.
Yeah. She's really sick. I think like the level 1 is, if you're planning on only doing the prep counter, it's actually worse than Xander's level 1, who gets the prep counter and the glimpse 2. So you're really level 1, you're kind of paying for the flexibility a little bit there, but I can see in some cases where you'd be like, well, I wish I had a little more though than just the prep counter. That level 2 though, you're never going to regret that. That's just that's strong.
We all thought Xander's new level 2 was good. This is actually better. Like, well, I'm going to go on the record and say it's better.
Oh,
Xander lets
all
you
right.
pick which card so Xander lets you pick which card you want. And so you go up a card, but like you just go up 2 cards with Tristan.
And you get another prep counter with Xander too, or you could just take the prep counters, but that's not.
Yeah, I mean, you get the same like Tristan 1 choice. I would rather have 2 cards than like another thieving cut and a prep counter.
Yep. I mean, on the other hand, though, you don't have to set up Xander's level 2. I mean,
you have to use a card, which is small setup.
Okay, fine. I'll say the setup is much less for Xander level 2. It's fairly easy to set that up. Whereas Tristan, you do need things to line up. We're not going to go into the full deck here because, of course, we still don't have it all revealed. But there will obviously be ways to get preparation counters in the deck.
Already they've shown like a couple cards that make it a lot easier to get prep counters. And so I'm expecting to see more. I'm expecting to see some more in Mercurial Heart proper as well, just based on them saying they've got support for all 7 classes. So I'm expecting a lot of really cool things to enable this
for sure
and get to the point where it's much better than Xander. But anyway, all of that leads up into the new Tristan level 3, Tristan Shadow Dancer, an Umbra Assassin Human. With on enter, summon 2 ominous shadow tokens and put a prep counter on Tristan. And then also you can remove 2 prep counters from Tristan to change the target of an attack that targets Tristan to a Fantasia ally you control. So before we go any further, what an ominous shadow token is, it's a token Fantasia ally, Assassin Shadow with 1/4, unblockable, which means this unit's attacks can't be intercepted and ignore taunt. If damage would be dealt to Ominous Shadow, prevent 3 of that damage.
That line is so insane.
That's so dumb.
That's like the craziest line I've ever read on a card, I think.
Like it's
in Grand Archive.
It's better than Majestic Spirit, like most of the time, actually. Like it's better than that damage prevention.
I mean, it's only on the shadow.
It's only on the shadow.
But yeah, it's like it's generally like Majestic Spirit's damage prevention is so crazy that I have still seen competitive players blunder trying to kill things repeatedly because it's just so easy to miscalculate just how good that damage prevention was. Like, yeah, just like if you try attacking anything Crux, your turn's basically a blank.
Yeah,
this is like
100%.
These things are hard to kill. They're really, really hard to kill. And it's basically that line basically just says they're not worth trying to kill with normal means. Like you have to dunk on them with a 7 damage attack to get anywhere, or a 7 damage fireball.
For context, that's a heavy blade with Tenoris's level 2 bonus, like, or a heavy swing with his level 2 bonus. Like,
no, that's 9. That's 9.
Well, yeah, but like you can't just throw a regular heavy swing at him.
Oh yeah, sure. I see what you're saying.
The bonus. Like,
I see what you're saying. You need to have a buffed heavy swing in order to take out one of the shadows that of the 2 that are created.
Exactly. I mean, it's okay. Though these things aren't like completely, totally 100% bonkers because they also have the line Ominous Shadow may only declare attacks against units your champion has dealt combat damage to this turn. So that's a pretty big restriction, especially like if you don't have any weapons out or you just don't have any attack cards or whatever. Obviously you're not doing anything with these shadows other than maybe redirecting some damage, right? But not only are they like a really good just kind of like damage prevention source, they are a really good damage prevention source because of Tristan's other ability where you can remove prep counters to change the target of attacks to them. They also just get in for a ton of damage if Tristan went in for a ton of damage, which she actually might do with another new card that was revealed, Shadow Strike. It's a 2-cost Umbra attack, Assassin Dagger, 4 attack, with Prepare X. X cannot be 0. And then Shadow Strike gets plus X power and class bonus. If it was prepared, it has unblockable. So this card is bananas.
This card is so good. This card I saw it before everything got spoiled. I saw a bunch of people being like, I gotta buy coup de grace. Don't worry.
No, please. I hope you haven't bought your coup de grace yet.
This is better than coup de grace.
You skip them. You skip them.
The damage that this thing does And the fact that it's also unblockable is like actually super relevant, because your opponent will be dropping the Stalwart Shield Mates, the Library Witches, the stuff to try and get in your way.
The Majestic Spirits.
The Majestic Spirit, I was about to say that, but it was like, well, it's still going to half the damage. In this
It's still pretty good in this situation. But like, let's say you got them to 3 before they drop Spirit. All you have to do is have 1 prep counter, and all of a sudden Shadow Strike is lethal.
Yep.
So I mean, your baseline, it's a 5 damage unblockable attack with Tristan.
Yep. And then with the shadow attacks too.
Yes.
Those add on, so it becomes like baseline. If you have 2 shadows out and you haven't done anything else, you're looking at actually 7 damage. That's unblockable because the shadows are also unblockable.
Yeah. Yep. And all that is enabled just from going to level 3 too, because she puts the prep counter on herself with her on enter as well. So like, yeah, all you need is 3 cards in hand to do 7 damage, which is not the 13 damage in a million cards you got from Silvie, but also it's also just all unblockable too. So,
but we can make this. Get in there. We can make this 1 million damage.
We can make this 1 million damage. So why don't you tell people how we make this 1 million damage?
I will. I'll tell people what is definitely my favorite card revealed from the Tristan deck so far. Grim Foreboding. This card is wild. This card's insane. I could not believe this card. 3 cost, action, assassin skill, fast speed, Tristan bonus. I know you all were wondering if this is the first time you've seen these. Summon an ominous shadow token is the text on that card, is the Tristan bonus, which means yes, you do not only have 2 shadows. You can run 4 of these, and you can have more than 2 shadows by popping multiple Grim Forebodings, getting a new one every time. There's even more stuff we've seen. There's another card we've seen that summons an ominous shadow token as well. So Tristan's going to be able to bring a more of an army of shadows out than you would expect. But it's not just that. After you summon that shadow token, Fantasia allies you control get +1 power until end of turn, and you gain agility 3 for this turn too, because why not? You can also have that.
Yeah, I mean, if that part is so funny because like you're at level 3, you've got some ominous shadow tokens, you're probably doing really cool stuff already. Theoretically, this is probably going to kill them. Like, the agility 3 is just so silly.
But it's like just in case. Just in case, yep. They like we had Taylor at locals last week. They like, nope. Turns out they had 2 resolute stands in hand or something, right?
Yeah, like, exactly. Yep.
By the way, I still lost, even though I had all 4 resolute stands against them. I was playing cleric, so it was kind of expected against Taylor, but I put up a good fight. This is so cool. So the cool thing about this is that since it's fast speed, you can use this during your recollection phase. By before you recollect, what we like to call pre-recollect, you pay the 3, you put the Grim Foreboding down, you make the shadow token, you buff all 3 of your shadow tokens, then you recollect everything back to hand, then you pop that Shadow Strike in there. That Shadow Strike, let's say you got to the 4 prep counters just to draw the card, and then you got the 5th one when you leveled up to 3. So you have 5 prep counters sitting around, spend 5, go to 9 damage on that Shadow Strike, unblockable. And then you get to crash in with 3 more shadows after that for 2 each time, bringing you up to a cool 14. Bad at math. 5, 9, 15 damage. 15 damage. I did it right in my head, and then I just totally blanked. 15. Cool 15 damage. Swing that turn. But we're assassins, so there's Poison Dagger. There's other stuff you can do.
Oh my god. Ominous Shadows work so insanely well with Poison Dagger. It's just dope.
Yeah,
oh my god. What a time. I am very excited. People are super hyped about Silvie. That is the recollection deck for them. I'm very happy for them. Tristan has won my heart over so quickly. As a longtime Lorraine stan, I'm going to have to take a couple weeks off and play Tristan for a while at locals, I think.
Yeah.
Because this deck just looks bonkers.
Yep. But we have a lot more to talk about, so we will go to our deep dive in those next week.
Yes.
Let's talk about the rest. So I don't know if we mentioned this right away, but a lot of the info we're going to pull from here, not everything, but a lot of it's going to be found as well on the Grand Archive website, GATCG.com. We'll have the link in the description if you want to just go look through and see some other cards we're not talking about there. But what we're going to do is just kind of go through it in the same order they did there. And you could even follow along if you wanted to.
Just follow along. Yeah.
Yep. And we're going to talk about the new mechanics. We're going to talk about some of the elements and just a couple other notes about the set in general before we close this thing out. So
go to GATCG.com, click the articles. As of recording, it is the first article in the list. Otherwise, just find the Mercurial Heart design notes. You follow along. We'll get started here. We're first going to talk about Imbue, which is a new mechanic that is kind of it's not an alternate cost, but it is an alternate way to activate cards, I guess is the way they put it here, right? So when you activate a card with Imbue, it has a numerical value associated with it. So Imbue X. If it's, for instance, Imbue 2, you can basically you show all the cards revealed that you're using to reserve to pay for the card as you activate it. And if they are all the same element as the card you are activating, the card becomes imbued. So the way they phrase it specifically is you may reserve all cards revealed as you activate this card.
That wording has thrown some people off already. So
So
there's
no like reveal triggers or anything like that. You're not putting cards into memory and then revealing them. You are basically revealing them as you are putting them into memory. Or you're I mean, that's the best way to say it. Like you reserve them revealed, like in the revealed state. And then they'll be face down when they're in your memory after you've activated the spell or the card and put it on the stack. One of the cool cards we've seen here is Surging Bolt, which is a 3-cost fire spell or fire action, mage spell with Imbue 3. So you have to pay 3 for the cost, and then you have to reveal all 3 and have them all be fire element to get the bonus to make it be imbued. And then the effect is deal 3 damage to target champion. If Surging Bolt is imbued, deal 4 damage to that champion instead. So giving your opponent a little bit of information and having the requisite a number of fire element cards, you can get extra damage out of the spell, which is pretty neat.
This is a nice card just to kind of the thing about those fire aggro decks is they're the ones who eventually get hated out usually because there's just enough efficient tools. Mid-range is just able to kind of hold them off long enough. So while some people might get a little bugged seeing stuff like this, I'm always okay seeing here's a little bone towards that deck and a new little tool to push a little damage. You're going to play your Surging Bolt. You're going to hopefully reveal 3 Rococos, and your opponent's going to go, oh no, there's way too much damage coming at me. And it does exactly what you want that deck to do, which is going to drop cards in hand to deal direct damage to the opponent. So seems like a card that your Fizas, your Fire Xander aggro decks are going to be wanting to jam in just to have more ways to just push straight damage at the opponent. But the interesting about Imbue is just that it is encouraging us to really load up on that element. If your hand doesn't have for Surging Bolt to work, your hand needs to have 4 fire cards in it, and you have to not want to play if it's exactly 4, you have only Norm other than that or something, or advanced element. You have to go, I'm okay with not playing any of these other fire element cards this turn, which isn't going to be the case actually all that often. Unless you're really, really high on fire count. So it's one of those sneaky mechanics where it's like, oh, you had a 3, like whatever. Of course I have that all the time. But I think in practice, it's going to be like, you actually have to think about this a little bit more in deck building and actively choose to play more fire element cards to make it consistent enough where it's not hurting you on your turn to have to imbue the card.
Yeah. Like if you are playing Sylvia with Spirit of Slime, probably not playing that many imbue cards.
Well, you'd have to have slime ones that say imbue too.
Well, yeah, exactly. But you know what I mean? Like you just have a bunch of elements in there.
Yep.
What I like about Imbue too is I think it is going to kind of help diversify aggro decks a little bit. Specifically, like right now, a lot of aggro decks are just ally decks, and a lot of them are normal element 2/3 allies. And so you can play a bunch of those and have some really consistent allies you can count on, or you can play some imbue cards. Maybe you have to cut back on some of those norm allies in order to actually like get the bonuses on a consistent basis as well.
Yeah.
Or maybe you're a level 3 deck and you want to play this other cool new imbue card, Fractal of Ruin, which is a 2-cost water Fantasia Cleric Fractal with Imbue 2. So you need this and 2 other water cards. At the beginning of your Recollection phase, if Fractal of Ruin is imbued, target player puts the top card of their deck into their graveyard, and then it also has reservable. So it works like a lot of the other Fractals we're used to. But it can mill either yourself or your opponent at the beginning of your turn. So you can do cool things like maybe put a bunch of these out and mill your opponent out pretty slowly, or you can mill yourself hoping to hit floating memory to help you get to level 3, right, and play some of those powerful advanced element cards. And then you have a little bit of tension, right? So how many advanced element cards do you play to where you can, not hurt the consistency of your Fractal of Ruins, but still like have a really powerful level 3 after you've gotten there and hopefully gotten there off some like milled floating memory from the Fractal as well.
This says Fractal of Rain, right?
Yeah, I do now.
That's
My vision's not great. We'll blame it on that one.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, but yeah, Fractal of Rain is cool. I think this is actually a really sick card. Imbue 2, not quite as bad as Imbue 3. I think it'll be a little easier to get going. And I do think there also, not only is it like a kind of interesting potential value engine to target yourself with it, and we've already heard and we'll talk about a card in a little bit that really is a self-mill like value engine card.
Yes.
I'm excited about that one.
It's not even. It's just a whole thing. It's just the whole deck.
It's the whole package. This one can also be used for the. I know you're out there. The opponent mill fans, where you're playing, you're grinding your Nico decks. You are pushing hard. I'm proud of you. I love you. I want you to keep doing that. And here is Fractal of Rain, which is going to be the card you want to start with every single game when you're playing your mill Nico deck. You just want to drop out as many of these as possible and start to have a good time. So there you go. It's like the bone. It's the bone for you guys, and it's for me like potential value engine card.
Yep. Well, I mean, that's the thing, right? Like there's so many water cards that just have floating memory stapled on them already.
Yeah.
Like you already are playing a lot of those water cards probably. So this slots into a lot of those decks really well.
We'll talk about more.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. So Imbue is going to be pretty cool. There's also kind of a big theme around automatons and Powercells, which is kind of another like more aggressive kind of mechanic. So Powercells are a token, actually. They are a token item, a cleric Powercell with 1, rest this, sacrifice Powercell. Target automaton ally gains +2 power until end of turn. So you can get a bunch of these tokens, you can give your allies a bunch more power and just hit for really big swings, for somewhat minimal investment as far as, actually activating the Powercell. But Dan, how do we get Powercells? How do we create these?
Well, you're going to have to summon them. And the big thing is that these are playing into this automaton tribal thing that is really coming out in MRC, which makes sense because for all we can guess, set 5 is probably going to go to a new world, and we might be leaving automatons behind, or they might be just a minor thing we see, or maybe we won't see any more until we get another recollection deck of some kind.
Hopefully a world with Crux.
Hopefully a world for Taylor's sake. We want a world with Crux.
Anyway, sorry, continue.
But yeah, so you're going to have some automatons that you can jam into your little automaton deck that are going to summon some power cells, and then you can use those power cells to power up your automatons, and it's a nice little closed system. So Cell Assembler is an example of a norm element ally guardian automaton, 2 cost, 2/1, reasonable rate. That's fine.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
With on enter, you may pay 2 more, and if you do, summon a power cell token rested. So the interesting thing about this mechanic, I definitely saw some people right away who were like, I don't know, seems like a lot of work, a lot of resources spending to try and, get these things out there. I've seen this kind of thing in some card games before, and it's been my generally pretty consistent experience that everyone underrates mechanics like this right away. It's really easy to go, ooh, I don't know. You got to pay 1 to activate it. You got to pay a little extra to make the thing. But then you start getting attacked by things for 4 and 6 damage, like the next turn. And you go, wow, I'm dying. I don't know how this even happened. Who could have predicted this? Mm-hmm. Yep. And I would say that we're going to have to give a little time. We're going to have to see what all the cards look like and how they all play out. But finding those little extra 1 and 2 one and twos to activate things, I think is going to be easier than people are going to predict. And I think there's an interesting line where, like, if you're working in this aggressive deck with this automaton focus and you want to try and get Gildas in there, it may be an interesting way to help you set balance up with certain hands as well, which is always a welcome thing for those decks too. So we are going to have some interesting, we have already seen, I think, actually, I'd say we've seen some cool payoffs for having power cells as well. So on the one hand, they're just activate them, buff the thing. Good deal. On the other hand, we have some cards that are saying, well, if you have power cells, what do you get to do with that? And Taylor, will you tell us about Charged Assailant?
Yes, Charged Assailant is a 3-cost wind ally assassin automaton with class bonus on enter. If you control a power cell, you gain agility 3 for the turn, and it is a 2/2. So agility 3 is really cool. It's a very good aggressive mechanic. We've seen that we have a new assassin champion to play and help enable the class bonus here. So this is an excellent payoff for having power cells just lying around, right? Because that's the other thing too, right? You can have all these power cells lying around to activate at some point, but while they're lying around, you get payoffs like this, which are awesome. So you play this guy for 3, you have your power cell out already. All of a sudden, he basically is a free card because you're going to pick those 3 cards up again at the end of the turn. And you're going to like probably have a Claim or a Zephyr or whatever to hold up interaction and save him, and whatever other allies you have out.
The thing that I think that's exciting is, I mean, obviously it's cool that you just like dump it out there and dump another ally and still have your interaction. That's really cool. But let's talk about Gildas again for a second, where you just drop the Charged Assailant, get your balance, swing with everything, and then end your turn with your 6-card hand left if you want to, just to, like, have a packet full of Veiling Breezes or whatever you need to live in sort of the late game. Or I mean, there's some interesting play with stuff like this, and I'm excited just for more of this kind of like memory movement, reserve movement shenanigans. I think is helpful.
Yeah, agreed. Yep. Yeah, I think like you said earlier too, like a lot of people I think are going to underrate this mechanic quite a bit, especially like we haven't seen the strongest power cell generators yet, right? Like we've only seen 2, sure, I think, in this design notes. I forgot if there were any other ones that were spoiled during the stream, right? But the 2 spoiled here are not going to be the only 2, otherwise they wouldn't work, right? So we're probably going to see some like fairly powerful stuff, I would imagine.
Yeah, at least we've seen norm element stuff, right? And remember, yes, like design-wise, norm element stuff is also made to be a little less powerful because of its flexibility. Once we start seeing the basic element or even advanced element things that could make those, I'm sure you'll start to go, oh, okay, this is kind of scary.
Oh, yes. Yep. 100%. And again, like it's all these power cells like are +2 power, which is not like that's a significant amount of power.
It is.
But yeah, moving on kind of into like the elements now, each of the elements do kind of have their own like theme in general. Just kind of, random things they're doing, not necessarily specific mechanics like power cells, but just, overall, this is kind of the direction these elements are taking this set. So we got fire. Fire's got some cool stuff. Fire's got some, I'm just going to call it fire stuff. Like it's exactly what you would expect out of fire. It's dangerous. You're playing with fire in that you can get burned, but you can also just burn your opponent out as well. They're like one of the new cards here is actually, I think, kind of bonkers. It's almost like Rococo, except you actually can have as much influence as you want. You've got Volatile Fusilier, a fire ally, 1 cost, ranger human, ranged 2, and then class bonus on enter. You may have Volatile Fusilier deal 4 damage to your champion. If you do, it becomes distant, and so it's going to start hitting for 3 instead of 1 that turn. And so you see this initially and you're like, okay, well, I've got to take 3 damage to deal 4 damage, to deal 3 damage. That's not a very good trade, right? But if you're playing this card and you're playing fire, you're probably a pretty aggressive deck, right? So you're like, you probably have a lot more life to play with than your opponent does. You can afford to pay that 3 life or that 4 life to deal an extra 3 damage, especially if they only have like 3 health left, right? Or, maybe they have 6 health life left and you drop down both of these, like 2 of these. And you take 8 damage, but still probably worth it if you kill them. So like,
We
there's a ton of really cool stuff.
we already saw in sort of the early developing Alk meta, we saw these Fire Ranger like hyper aggro decks being like worked on a little bit, but I think ultimately they were generally just a little less consistent than Fire Xander in their ability to kind of dish that damage out, especially after we got the new level 2, which just helped them like close games better. But yeah, I mean, I think it's worth another look going into the MRC meta now with stuff like Fusilier, like just gonna dunk a lot of damage out of nowhere for very low cost, which seems pretty strong. And I also want to mention too, just with this theme in fire, make sure you've got copy of Chalice of Blood around, because I see some. I already run into Chalice of Blood all the time because I'm a moron, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'll get you to 20, and then pass turn, and then every time Taylor's like Chalice of Blood, I'm like, cool, yeah, have those cards. Yep, that's what I wanted you to do. Yeah, that was really good.
Thank you for your service, Dan.
Yep, yeah, you're welcome. But now you're not even going to get control over that, like I would pretend to have. Your opponent will just go, oh, cool, you got me to 16, great, Volatile Fusilier, go to 20, draw 2. Draw 2 cards this turn. They'll know they'll get to about Chalice of Blood material and then go Fusilier, draw 2, and then just like Rococo's all over you, and you're gone. Yep. So I'm excited to see how that plays out.
100%. All right, moving on to the water. Let's start with what could potentially be the nuttiest card in the set.
This is my favorite card. This is my favorite card that's been shown.
Yeah,
this thing 100%. Is so good. I think
actually okay. So water, before we get to it, water in Mercurial Heart is doing a lot of really cool self-mill things, which people have really been trying to make work. So like a lot of it is just like trying to fill your graveyard up and do cool things with the resources that give you, whether that's, floating memory, whether that's other weird things in your graveyard. Maybe you got a Mistbound Cutthroat in there from your DOA packs that's been wallowing away, and you finally see the chance to play it. But the card that is just going to really take all that stuff and like crank it up to 11 is Icebound Slam, which is a 7-cost water attack Guardian Sword with class bonus. This card costs 2 less to activate. It's 3 power. And the really nutty part here, on attack, put the top 5 cards, the top 5 cards of your deck into your graveyard. And then if there are 5 or more water element cards in your graveyard, Icebound Slam gets +5 power. So not only is it throwing 1 million cards into your graveyard, it's potentially going to hit for 8, all for 1 card. This card is insane.
Okay, this is an expensive attack, right?
Yep.
It costs 7. You're going to use it in Guardian, where it's going to cost 5. 7 is tough. However,
I'll play this in a water Lorraine deck all day.
If you're going second and you get that card, you can just run it out there if you want to with your 8-card hand. You just drop an Icebound Slam. You mill 5. You're like, if I hit 5 water cards, it's 8 damage turn 1. It's like in my water deck, like pretty hilarious, I think. But I think you'll see a lot of times, whether it's just because you didn't see it yet or because you want to try and set it up to be consistent, you're going to start your like turn 1 doing some stuff. Maybe you're doing stuff like Fractal of Rain, or you're going to use the other card we're going to talk about here in a second. Or you're just going to play some water cards of some kind to put some cards in your graveyard. Then you will have a couple of water cards in there. So now you're pretty likely you level to 1. Let's say your Guardian. We're just going to go good old Tony. Go to Tony level 1. Maybe with floating memory, maybe without, doesn't matter. Then you pay 5, slam down your Icebound Slam, put 5 more cards in there. Hopefully you have it set up to the point where you get to that threshold and you're doing 8 damage with your swing. But importantly, you've put a bunch of cards in there now. So the next one is basically guaranteed, if not guaranteed, to get the damage. And you might have just put some floating memory in there to level up. Then the next turn you level to 2. To Tony level 2, Icebound Slam, not just for 8 this time, it's for 11. It's for 11. Milling 5 more, do you even need them? No. Will they let you level to 3 next turn? Probably. Like, that, to me, that line, now all you're doing is slamming the opponent. So that's the thing about this, right? Like, I think this is insane, but that's because, when you think about it on the other side of things, your opponent's going, okay, take the damage, and I'm playing Fire Xander, and I'm going to kill you now, right? Yep. It is a very like single-minded attacking strategy
Actually, I completely disagree.
Okay.
You'll notice that the base power on this is 3 power, and the base health of many allies is that, or at least the threshold people want to hit is 3 health. And so you can just play this on turn 2 on a 2/3 that somebody dropped on turn 1 as a removal spell that maybe draws you like 1 or 2 cards by putting some floating memory in your graveyard.
Okay. If that's like, fair.
This card is totally fair take. So bonkers.
Yeah, just using it as removal.
It does everything.
It does. It really does do everything, but it is costly. I mean,
it's extremely expensive. Yes.
You're gonna put down. You're gonna have very little you can do after you play this thing on your turn. Very, very little left. Yeah, I mean, it's the thing that is pretty interesting too, though, is that the class bonus is just the activation cost. So you can jam this in as like a closer and like a Water Merlin or something, where you're just going to have a lot of cards in hand late, and you're just because Crux things, and you're just going to go, I don't know, 8 damage, and it's going to mill me. I don't know what you would do with it at that point, but Erendite, actually, Erendite.
Erendite, yes. Well, no, it's so good because it enables Erendite, and it's also 8 damage if they kill your Erendite before you get an attack off. Like, it just,
or with Erendite, it's like a 20 damage. You just die if this hits you.
This card is so pushed. I am just dying right now.
I mean, like we saw Heavy Swing really came out as a contender. It was the card that put Tenoris aggro decks over the top, because they were just able to go. They played the ally game that everyone else did, but they also said, "Oops, you take 8 damage. You take 9 damage. Sorry, you just take 9 now." And that is what this does, but that's less damage than what this does. This requires setup. This requires 1 more cost than Heavy Swing. But then the advantage is like, do you want to go to level 3? Because it's free. It's free now.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Which is pretty cool. So it's I think this is a really good card. Will that 1 cost be the issue? Will decks be able to fight it? If you're spending your whole turn doing it, I think those are up in the air, but I'm looking at this card very closely.
I will tell you very soon after release if decks can fight it, because I'm going to be throwing this into so many decks.
Yeah, I can feel that. Absolutely. I will be too, other than I first have to beat you with Silvie, then I can play around with other things.
Oh, well, okay. You might be playing around with Silvie for a while then.
No, my friend.
No, her stuff looks good.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay. We've got one more water card that does some cool self-mill stuff, right?
Yeah. We're going to talk about this because if you're listening to this the day this released, we released our spoilers. Our first spoilers, content creator spoilers for MRC, and I had to talk more about this card because I only got to talk. I try and do the spoiler videos very briefly. I don't get into too much detail, but I wanted to talk with Taylor about Primordial Ritual with you all, because I think this is the other water card we've seen that is going to be making waves. You see what
Nice.
Okay. Primordial Ritual is a 2-cost fast speed action cleric skill with, as an additional cost to activate this card, sacrifice an ally. Have you heard this before on a previous ritual card? It says target player puts the top 2 cards of their deck into their graveyard and floating memory. So when we compare this to Cremation Ritual,
wait. There's one other. Did you say it's fast speed?
I did say it's fast speed.
Okay. So I missed that part.
No, that's important though. When you compare this to Cremation Ritual, this costs 1 less and it's fast speed, which is the huge thing about Cremation Rituals. You have to commit on your turn to losing that ally in order to gain the card draw that it gives you right away. And you have to pay 3 for it. This doesn't give you the guaranteed 2 cards, but it gives you the floating memory. So it's halfway there. And it gives you a mill, which I'm going to guess most of the time you're going to target yourself playing this, because I don't, you know what, you mill guys are crazy, but you're gonna probably put this in your mill deck.
And we're seeing a lot of mill effects. I could totally see people. Yep. So that's fine, but I'm gonna be thinking about this a lot as just a value engine card, because what you can do is finally, at long last, you can put Library Witch into your Water X decks. You can put those Stalwart Shieldmates in, and you don't have to feel bad about it when you go up against Rye or whatever. You can just pop them out there, and now they can actually take a hit. You know, your opponent can declare an attack into the taunt target. You can intercept with the Library Witch, and then you can Primordial Ritual it during the combat in order to not only stop that damage, but then get a little extra value from the mill
and set that floating memory up, potentially finding more if your deck is built and you're lucky.
Yep.
Go ahead, Taylor.
Yeah,
what do you think?
I think this card is very good as well. I think it is really cool in like Water Merlin. It's going to do some awesome stuff there. Again, like enabling your library witches, letting you play those there now. The other thing I think it's really cool. I think actually ally decks could see some amount of play of this, depending on exactly what types of interaction we're seeing for ally decks. Specifically, I'm thinking Blast Shot Pump at the moment, but like any other effects like that, where you need to hit one ally in order to actually get your value of taking out multiple allies or doing multiple instances of damages. This just stops all of that. Does the same thing like Reclaim or Zephyr would do in Wind. And again, you're interacting favorably at that point because this has floating memory as well. So just super super dope card here.
Yeah, it's going to be, I think, a workhorse in a lot of water decks that are just trying to do the things that Fire has been able to do for a long time and play the cards that Fire has been able to play. And we're actually going to talk about a card in a little bit that also is going to work really well with this card too. Yep. Any allies that just have like they get their value on enter or on death are ones where you can get the value now and then just get them out of there once it's time.
It's
really good.
This is really like I think of this a lot like Reclaim from Wind, in that it allows you to take advantage of your opponent trying to interact with you and your board and get some tempo back that way. I think, and then on top of that, just because of being able to sacrifice allies at will, also just lets you kind of generate some advantage on your own moving forward too, without having to have your opponent interact. So
people who want to play Water Cleric are finally able to not feel bad about playing Foraging Servant.
Oh my God, no kidding. That card is still really bad, but at least it's like playable now with Primordial Ritual.
A lot of these decks have just needed a way to sacrifice it in order to not just have it be kind of like a weird 1/2 that made an herb.
Yes.
And that, this is going to work really well. And I actually, having been messing around with a Cleric Claude based automaton deck, I think this will make this and a bunch of new automatons in the set are going to make that much more of a potential thing in Water, which is cool because Water has some really good Cleric stuff. It just has garbage automatons, and it doesn't. Claude's actually insane. By the way, just a little.
Claude is super good.
This is a tidbit. About Alk, but it didn't really get to come out much because Cleric wasn't very explored. But Claude is actually nuts. Claude's actually really, really good. So if you find the right stuff in MRC, look at Claude. That's what I'm going to tell you.
Yes, Claude's sweet.
Wind.
But that's what Water is doing. Water is doing really cool self-mill things. I'm excited to see this and kind of just have another way for like Water to go to level 3 a little bit more consistently. Like we've seen a lot of success with the ally decks now because of Scepter of Lumina. This is going to give Water decks this is going to play really well with Scepter of Lumina too.
It sure is
helping to play that card for low cost. But it's going to help your level 3 decks just in general too. It's going to be sweet. Moving on to Wind. I don't really know how to describe the theme of Wind other than like just everything. Stuff.
It does. Wind
exactly.
Wind is continuing to just be interacting. It's it's like Fire and Water both have very just like selfish themes in this set. Fire is just dealing damage to itself in order to kill you. Water is just going to try and like mill a bunch of stuff in order to generate value. Wind is going to do the thing that's going to make Wind continue to be I think it's going to continue to be one of the lesser played elements, even though it is just as good or better than the other elements in the right circumstances. Especially because people need to start playing Temporal Spectrometer, but that's another thing. So in this set, we're seeing some cool Wind cards that are just giving you more ways to screw with the opponent's plan and stop Erupting Rhapsody decks from doing things. It's actually like a thing that Wind's going to get really good at here. I think Erupting Rhapsody is going to be taking a tumble in playability here.
Yep, that's bad news for you.
How am I going to win now?
I think we're both going to we're hoping that Ascent Midwest is something we can both attend. You will not be able to play Erupting at this Ascent like you normally would.
Try and stop me.
I'm going to try pretty successfully, I think.
Yeah, you will. I agree.
We're going to start here with Cleansing Reunion, which is a 2-cost wind action cleric skill fast speed with Imbue 2. Target player banishes 3 cards from their graveyard, and if Cleansing Reunion is imbued, that player banishes 6 cards from their graveyard instead. So just a huge hit to Erupting Rhapsody decks, and also just any deck that like wants to utilize their graveyard. And we just got done talking about how Water is going to throw a bunch of cards into their graveyard, hoping for floating memory. Obviously, like,
yep,
if you get to a certain point, if you have 7 cards and only one of them has floating memory, you don't have to banish the floating memory. Obviously,
the opponent gets to choose the cards. That's something that not everyone's going to notice right away. But
yep. But I mean, like, 6 cards is still a lot of cards. It's one more than the Slam puts in your graveyard, actually. So, like, this is really gonna keep graveyard shenanigans in check. It seems like there's probably going to be a good amount in the set just based on how strong this is. And yeah, just any sort of Erupting player is going to cry because all of a sudden, like, they have to do about 1 million times more work. They're not only are they probably fighting through a Nullifying Lantern, with protected by Zephyrs and Wind, then now they have to also just like fill their yard up even more. Like Fire Xander Aggro actually hates this because they don't put a ton of fire cards in their graveyard. They need at least 3 for Rending Flames. So like this hoses that pretty well as well. Yep. Like fire in general just really doesn't want to see this.
I think the thing about this too is this and the other card we're going to show are both Imbue cards. And every element has had reasons to care, but wind decks that are playing not favorable winds, Veiling Breeze are already there. They've already been playing the Imbue dance for a while, where you're trying to put them all into memory pretty consistently. So Cleansing Reunion having Imbue 2 is like almost not even really a cost on it, because if you're playing a deck that has this in it, I bet you're playing a slower wind deck with Veiling Breeze already, and it's like, yeah, I mean, I was already going to do that, so
yep,
it's fine.
Yeah, cards like Windcutter are not super played right now, but I mean, those are still good cards.
Yep,
like just lots of reasons to be putting a critical mass of wind cards in your deck, and this continues that trend.
And the big thing too is we're going to only mention it briefly, but for MRC season, there's a mulligan change. Sorry, not mulligan change. Why don't I say that? Sideboard change. There's not a mulligan change.
There's no mulligan at all.
Recollection Step lying to you once again. That's how we do it. There's no mulligan. I'm sorry about that. I don't know where that came out, but I mean a sideboard change. Taylor, why don't you go through this, because I clearly can't be trusted.
Yeah, so we'll go into this in more detail at another episode, I'm sure, just when we get around to sideboarding specifics. But the cool thing is, previously for events that are best of 3, you had an 8-card sideboard that you could fill up with any amount of material deck and main deck cards that you wanted, as long as you kept the card limits appropriate. Like it's still only 4 of between your main and your sideboard for main deck cards, and 1 of 4 material deck cards. That is now increased to 15 cards starting with the release of Mercurial Heart. So almost double the size of the sideboard, allowing you a lot more options. The tricky thing about that is that your material deck cards, I think it's Regalia specifically, they are worth 3 sideboard slots. So let's say you have 12 main deck cards, and that means you can only add 1 more Regalia card to your sideboard, or 3 more main deck cards. So you have to do a little bit of math there. But anyway, all that means is that the sideboard is much bigger now, and you have a lot more options to kind of tech for a lot of different decks as you're building your sideboard. And so what that means for these wind decks is that you can play a bunch of Cleansing Reunions in your sideboard and actually still have room in your sideboard for other things and feel somewhat safe going into like Erupting matchups or something like that. So it allows like these interactive wind decks to make sure they're packing the right tools for the right matchup, no matter what that matchup is, and tailoring their deck as they go through and get to game 2 and 3 in these matches.
You're always tailoring your deck.
I'm always tailoring my deck. That is correct. I don't care how many sideboard slots I get. I'm going to be tailoring my deck.
That's a good one.
Yes. Another kind of toolbox card we have here for wind is Blessed Clergy, which is a 2-cost wind ally. Cleric Human, Imbue 2, a 1/2, and class bonus on enter. If Blessed Clergy is imbued, target player can't play more than 2 cards during their next turn. So this is a little interesting. We don't see the word play thrown around very often in cards. Usually it is materialize or activate. I forget if Nia has play specifically.
She does.
But anyway, she does. Okay. So play refers to both materialize and activate. So you have the option of either materializing a card and then activating a card later on in your turn. If your opponent has activated a Blessed Clergy imbued against you, you can choose not to materialize anything and then activate 2 cards. Those are kind of your only options unless you have other weird shenanigans going on. Normally you can't materialize 2 cards per turn. You can only materialize 1. If you're playing against another win deck and you play a Blessed Clergy and they materialize a card and then they go to play Beseech the Winds against you to try and materialize another card, they're going to have a very, very bad time
because they're going to resolve. That does nothing.
That does nothing. They resolve Beseech the Winds and they cannot play any more cards after that if they materialized a card in the materialization phase.
This card is, I think, a really cool floodgate type card that's just going to, like, again, we don't know where Cleric's going to land as far as playability, whether it be Arasana or Vanitas or something else, but this card can just drop early and just say, you are not going to be able to play your next turn to your fullest against a lot of decks. Now our little Guardian deck is going to be like, I don't care, swing for 8 or whatever.
Yeah. Yep.
It's not always going to be impactful, but you could easily board this in against like fire decks or something that are trying to go like Library Witch, Cremation Ritual, Creative Shock, Increasing Danger, this kind of stuff, and be like, choose 1 or choose 2 and don't materialize anything, which honestly is probably worse a lot of the time to choose that. And I think that's stronger than it might look right away.
Yeah. You have to know when to play this because it only lasts for a turn.
Yep.
So like you can't just count on this to keep you in the game or lock your opponent out of the game forever.
And the thing about Imbue is that you would normally with a non-enter like this, you'd be able to suppress it and get it multiple times, but you don't get to do the Imbue again when you suppress it. It'll come back in as a new object that has no recollection of whether or not it was imbued previously. So it will default to it wasn't. So you would need to reclaim it. I mean, but you can actually reclaim it.
And that's not actually half bad depending on the deck, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we talked a lot about fire decks. This does a number on a lot of really powerful ones. Fire Xander is going to have a really tough time. You see them like materialize a Poison Dagger. You're like, okay, well, that means my turn. I'm going to play my Blessed Clergy. Make sure you cannot materialize and play a bunch of things to go with that Poison Dagger. Like, you aren't going to hit me with 3 Rococo's after you activate that next turn. You're going to hit me with 1, maybe 2, depending on what you do. Same thing with Erupting, right? They can't go Ember Song Erupting Fireball. They can go Ember Song Erupting, and hopefully that's enough.
Yep.
But you probably have also Cleansing Reunion to them, so that's probably not enough.
Even against ally water decks right now that are trying to do the like, okay, I did Scepter last turn, I'm going to level to 1, Dungeon Guide to 2, Dungeon Guide to 3. Yep. It's choose 2, right? They can't do it all the way this time.
Exactly. Yep. So yeah, it's a pretty defensive card that's going to reward players for kind of understanding how each matchup flows. It's very cool. I'm a big fan of this and seeing Wind get a lot more tools like this, especially with the upgraded sideboards. I thought I had another cool point, but I should have written it down, but it doesn't matter. In that case, we will move on to kind of the last section here, all the cool new shiny cards, the CSRs, CURs, singular CUR, I should say, that are popping up in Mercurial Heart. Well, we'll just talk about one of the CSRs, for now, which is kind of some fun mage support for water mage decks in Naya, Diviner of Fortunes.
This art's ridiculous.
This card is pretty good. It is a 3-cost unique ally mage human with class bonus on enter. Reveal the top 3 cards from your deck, banish one of those cards, and put the rest into your graveyard. If the banished card is a spell card, you may activate it as long as you control Naya. And it's a 2/2. So it's kind of like a mini Tide Diviner almost. And except you're always going to see 3 cards, and you're not going to put a card in your hand. You're going to banish a card instead. But if it's a spell card, you can play that for as long as you control Naya, which is almost as good as putting it in your hand, except it can kind of be disrupted. But it's such a powerful card.
This, I mean, I just think the art is really nice. I love how bright it is. This card is going to look really, really cool in foil.
Oh yeah,
but
yeah, the CSR is insane.
Yeah, it's beautiful. But yeah, I mean, this is a 3-cost 2/2, which is actually, like, for mage rate, that's like pretty good. Mages don't usually get that. And this works so beautifully with Primordial Ritual from earlier. It's kind of nuts, actually. Just go 3-cost, play this, find the ritual, mill potentially more floating memory or whatever. If we're in mage, you can mill things like Voltaic Sphere, which you want in your graveyard anyway, because you can banish it to get its activation later, which is pretty sweet.
If you're Merlin, you can mill Crux cards and find a Crux site.
You sure can do that. That sounds really good too. Oh, you're right. Water Merlin's gonna love this too. I've been kind of just thinking about Rye with this, but yeah, this is gonna be really sweet in Water Merlin.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your Primordial Ritual there.
I'm interrupting my own Primordial Ritual thing because I just realized too what you can do with this in Arcane is you can choose to banish an Arcane spell, and if they don't kill it, you get the Arcane spell. If they do kill it, you banish an Arcane spell. Yep. Which is going to give you that +1 level when you're Rye, which is really sick. But yeah, what if you do banish a Primordial Ritual? Now what you have is, as long as you keep 2 cards in your hand, you have this lingering thing where it's like, okay, if they ever go to kill Naya, or if you just decide to, you can always activate that Primordial Ritual to then sacrifice her and get the mill and get the floating memory. So she sets up with her own kind of like gun pointing at her or whatever. she's out of here whenever I say so.
she's like a bank robber who takes herself as hostage.
Yeah, that's what's going on. She'll take herself hostage with the Primordial Ritual. But I mean, that's like kind of good, actually.
So, I mean, it's really good, right? Because like they're like 2 power is actually like a relevant amount, right? Like my big beef with Foraging Servant is that it has 1 power, and it just the opponent can ignore that for the most part. Like that doesn't mean anything, but like 2 power gets to the point where that's significant. Like that's a decent amount of damage every turn against a champion. It is a relevant amount of damage to help control a board against like allies or anything like that. Like that's just it's twice as much as 1. It's a lot.
2. So confirmed in this podcast, 2 is twice as much as 1. Thank you, Taylor.
Well, you said you were bad at math, so I just wanted to make sure we were all on the same page.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you taking care of me.
But yeah, I mean, like, so your opponent is probably going to do something about it, and yeah, you find a Primordial Ritual, like it just lets you buy a lot of tempo against your opponent, and go like while still generating resources and getting ahead that way too. So, just a super cool line of play. And yeah, we got the Crux cards. Like if you're playing this in Water Merlin, you get to do a cool Crux site business like we talked about. Rye loves to see this as well. Like this actually kind of enables Mana Weaver beyond just Stormseer, because so like Mana Weaver actually wants to use floating memory to level up.
Yeah.
So this, like at earlier levels, will help find that, and also help find spells for Rye to use in the meantime, even if it's not an arcane spell. So yeah, just like great enabler there. Actually, I actually think it's going to be better with Mana Weaver than Stormseer, because
Mana Weaver's coming back, baby.
Exactly. Yeah, it's your time again. Let's go.
Yes, let's go.
You're gonna have a lot of sweet decks to try out here.
I know.
This season.
I have to stop playing Arasana decks to do that though, and I don't know if I can. I don't know if I have the strength to stop anymore.
I think once the rest of the set is revealed, you will find the strength somehow.
I'm sure.
But yeah, I mean, Naya, great card, just super cool card.
Let's talk about this was very exciting news. The final thing we're going to talk about is, as far as our sort of mechanic and current set preview review, is the announcement of a CUR returning to the set, because once again, just like set 2, this is a single print run set. So Mercurial Heart is just getting the 1 print run. And that means they put in serialized CURs, this time of just one CUR that you can find. So if you find a CUR, then this is the one you get. And if you do, you are ridiculously lucky. How rare are these bad boys again? Do you have it pulled up in front of you?
I don't. While you look that up, I will say, I think this set is reprintable. First edition is not reprintable, but I think there has not been confirmed or denied that alter is not a possibility for this as well.
Okay.
Just without like the CSRs as well. So I just want to make sure we got that part clear. So Sil's not calling us out again.
Yeah, so will definitely call us out if I'm just straight lying about it.
Yeah.
But you're right.
Actually,
They say
no, this is great because in any case he's going to call us out now. So this is perfect.
we got it. Yeah, Mercurial Heart first edition booster boxes, 27,750 boxes, not reprintable is what it says about first edition. So yeah, there could be an alter at some point. My understanding though, and so this is where he'd feel free to call us out, but my understanding is that like Fractured Crown, there is not a plan to make an alter edition necessarily. Yes. It would be just, I mean, if it happened, it would be down the line, and who knows what could change in the game. But like we're not talking like in a few months, right? I'm talking like probably in years, if that were to happen. So,
I think back to the CUR though. I think the rate was like 1 in 386 boxes.
I was thinking it was somewhere either 300 something. I think that's right. 300 something boxes. It is not listed, unfortunately, in the article here. It was just talked about in the stream, and I've just blanked on what the number was. I should have written it down like a good little journalist, but I don't remember. But it is so just as a reminder, CURs in Dawn of Ashes were 1 in every 15 boxes for these serialized CURs. So this is a little bit more rare.
Well, so that's because like this is also mixed in with the CSRs. So like your chance at a CUR or a CSR is like 1 in 15 boxes still, I think, approximately.
Yep. But there are exactly 72 of these bad boys.
Yes. Yep. There's 72 CURs, and there's I just had the product sheet up. There are how many CSRs? There's like 14 CSRs, right? So you have 15 cards you can pull from in this 1 in 15 box odds. And one of those 15 cards you could potentially open is a CUR, which ends up with like the 1 in 300 some odd box odds.
If it were 15 and 15, it would be 225, and I think it's higher than that. So
it is. They're short printed, yeah.
So it's short printed because of the 1 in 72 nature. So it's even more rare than just like getting any individual particular CSR. If that makes it more grokkable for certain people, but basically, if you open one of these things, you should be pretty damn excited.
Yeah, 100%. You've opened up a very rare card, a very cool card, I might add. The art is gorgeous. They've got a cool new like purple foil treatment for the lettering. The CURs and CSRs actually, but the CURs from Dawn of Ashes first edition had like a gold foil, the same as all the other CSRs. This has a cool purple foil going on. They have individualized, individual signatures or unique signatures on each different number. So like 1 has a signature, 2 has a slightly different signature, 3 has a slightly different signature. Like they're all handwritten. Very, very cool stuff, especially because after DOA released, it sounded like we weren't going to do CS or CURs anymore, specifically because of how difficult it was to do a lot of the signatures specifically and getting them into packs and collated and stuff. So even just seeing like 1 back is really, really neat.
I think it's awesome. I love having this like mega chase. It's just very exciting. I'm never going to pull one, but I think it's just super, super cool. To have that just top end thing, I like in other games, I've like things like God Rares and stuff that they put in. So I think it's pretty awesome. If I get a CSR, I'll be happy. If I get the CUR, I would be over the moon. I can't even imagine. I won't imagine because it's not going to happen.
Don't do it. Yeah. Yep.
But I want to mention just before we go into what this does, that just in case people are thinking about this the wrong way, this is also in the set at a lower rarity. It's this card is not only at CUR. Some people might have got that a little confused. So just so you know, this is just a cool version.
We don't know what the base rarity is. It could be a common. It could be an ultra rare. That has not been revealed yet. We've just only seen the CUR, but they have the same effects, obviously, because it's the same card, just like a higher alternate art or same art, alternate treatment of a higher rarity. But yeah, why don't you let us know what Tristan Shadow Reaver, I think is what it was?
Tristan Shadow Reaver is another level 3 Tristan. Also Umbra Advanced Element, 3 cost to level 2. Champion Assassin Human, Tristan Lineage once again. And Tristan has, again, they keep throwing more wacky effects to the game. This is another wacky level 3. This one says, Tristan can level up into champions of the same base level. When she does, draw 2 cards. She also has, on enter, banish the top 4 cards of target opponent's deck face down. As long as they're banished, you may play those cards, ignoring their elemental requirements. So, a lot of people had questions right away about this. This means Tristan Shadow Reaver, currently, as far as we know, Tristan Shadow Reaver can level up into Tristan Shadow Dancer. You still have to meet lineage requirements on the champion you level to. It just can also be a level 3 champion. Mm-hmm. If Tristan gets more Tristan level 3s in the future, then she could level up into other ones. But currently, as far as we know, it's just Shadow Reaver into Shadow Dancer. So this would be a middle step if you wanted to do that. And what you get for that middle step is you will draw 2 cards when you level to the other level 3. And when she enters, you just get to banish 4 cards from your opponent's deck. And as long as they remain banished, they are yours to play with no elemental restrictions, which means, do you like Ghosts of Pendragon? Now you too can have a Ghost of Pendragon in your Tristan deck.
Oh, God, this card is so bonkers. It's just like so much card advantage for absolutely no reason. It's so insane.
It is slower, right? Because you're just going to take that level to, when you get there, all you're going to do is banish cards from your opponent's deck. You might be able to play some of those. It's a little random. Like, will they be useful? Will they be Foraging Servants? I'll start running Foraging Servants in your Taylor just so you only hit Foraging Servants.
Oh my God.
And that should make you think twice about Shadow Reaver. But it also could be Ghost of Pendragon. It could be Gildas. It could be cremation rituals that you can just draw more cards with. It could be
Iceborne Slammer, or what was it?
It could be
Icebound Slam.
Gigantic attacks that you do not, but you don't get class bonus for them. Remember, that's another thing. Like, you ignore elemental requirements, but you're not going to get any class bonuses unless they're assassin class bonus.
But how good is this in the mirror then? In the Tristan mirror?
Pretty sweet. It's pretty sweet.
It's pretty dumb.
You are taking a turn though, when you could have been going to Shadow Dancer and potentially like pushing damage. So I don't think it's this thing is busted, but I think this is a potential interesting route to take as your level.
I actually think it's completely busted, and it's specifically because you just don't have to use it. Like, if you're going to put both level 3s in your material deck anyway. And if you are like, oh, I can put Shadow Dancer down and hit for X amount of damage and that's enough. Or I know that this is going to be a longer game, so I'm going to put down Shadow Reaver, get a bunch of cards and make it really difficult for my opponent to catch back up and get into the game. And then I'm going to go to Shadow Dancer and start trying to accumulate advantages that way. Like, the flexibility of it is really what is super, super powerful here. You're not punished at all, other than taking up a single material deck slot to try and
that is
play
a cost,
this.
especially as the game develops. That is a cost.
That is absolutely a cost. But we've seen a lot of decks play Lorraine level 1, Lorraine level 2, Lorraine level 3, and also Merlin level 2 and Merlin level 3.
Yeah.
So we've seen a lot of decks. Exactly. Like, people have been successful with these decks in the past. So it does not surprise me at all would not surprise me at all, I should say, if this is going to be a powerful archetype in the future, specifically just because of the flexibility. And the best part is it doesn't even lock you into a certain path either. Like, you go to Tristan Shadow Reaver and then you still have advancement opportunities where, like, the reason why we had to play Lorraine level 3 in our Merlin Lorraine decks in the past was because, like, you go to level 2, you get your sweep off, you do really cool things, but then you just kind of stall out. So you need to include even another card in order to have some more finishing power. Whereas, like, you don't even need to do that here. Like, you just continue leveling.
Yeah.
It's kind of insane.
Yeah. It's pretty sweet. Seems really good with Spectrometer. Just gonna throw that out there.
Spectrometer is so slept on. What a card.
It is.
Oh.
It is. Well, Taylor, I think that's this is a supersized episode, which hopefully will make up for us just completely missing the episode 2 weeks ago. We're giving you guys a lot of extra information, and we're not even done, because with that out of the way, I want to mention that we'd love to hear in the comments down below what you think about Mercurial Heart, the cards we previewed, Tristan Shadow Reaver, is she broken? Temporal Spectrometer. Just tell me it's good. Don't say anything bad about it, or I'm going to get sad.
No, tell him it's good, and then you can tell him like that Arizona is still not playable yet until we see more MRC, and then we'll lighten up a little bit because he'll need it. He needs the copium, and then we'll give it a couple weeks and we'll see where everything shakes out.
Yeah, I can be a realistic guy. I can say that Arsana isn't meta relevant yet, but she is better than some people think, because some people think she's unplayable, and she's playable, but not quite meta relevant. But
we haven't seen the advanced elements yet either. That could provide a lot of new context.
Yes, we've seen a few cards. We didn't talk about them in this episode. Just seen one of a few different ones. We did show off a Neos one as well on our spoiler video. But we have plenty more to see. Mercurial Heart's a big set, so there's gonna be a lot to see still. Before we leave, though, we have our first mailbag question, which I'm excited to go over in this. So we're going to jump in. This is going to be our Recollection Step mailbag. If you want us to talk about something in a future episode of Recollection Step, you have a question, or you just want us to cover a certain topic in the mailbag segment, leave it in the comments down below on YouTube with hashtag mailbag in your comments, so that I know that it is something that you want us to cover in the mailbag and I don't just respond to your comment. Or you can email maindeckgames@gmail.com with Recollection Step mailbag in the subject, which is exactly where this one came in. So Lucian Farrell, thank you for sending us this question. I am very excited for it. Lucian said some very kind things in the email, which I will save for us to look at. But the question that he had for us in the mailbag is, what do you think is the best time to start Grand Archive, both as a player and a store? And what is the best way for an excited player to get it into their LGS?
Oh, okay. Well, I can tell you right now, the best time to start is right now, right? Just actually hit pause on the podcast and go pick up some Grand Archive product and go find someone to play with and have a really good time. By far
the best time. Yeah. So the first part of the question, Taylor's getting at is, well, I mean, there are two things. Either he's saying it's any time's the best time to start, which is, that's fair. But right now with Mercurial Heart launching, we are entering an extremely exciting time. The Recollection decks are going to be an incredible way to try the game out. Like, honestly, just buy a Silvie and a Tristan deck and start playing with those. You could jam countless games with those decks and not get bored and just have an extremely good time. They come with play sets of everything. You will be able to just tweak the decks and with just within that box, let alone getting additional cards to do what you want them to do. And they are going to be able to, I think, pretty easily become meta relevant decks as well, without a lot of extra stuff. So it's a really great jumping on point. And then Mercurial Heart in general too will just, it is going to be spicing up with a lot of exciting new things in the metagame, where it should be a fun thing with this. We're at the stage now in the game where we've got the fourth set releasing, and there is actually finally, I think, a good amount of room for all the different champions to be able to kind of maneuver into at the very worst locals playable spot, if not high level competition. And what you need if you're starting out is just locals playable stuff. So there's so much to explore. You'll have so much fun.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, with every single set so far, we've seen the amount of champions that are satisfying to play at a local level increase. And NMRC looks like it's going to continue that trend. On top of that, Recollection decks are awesome because, like Dan said, they're probably, there's probably an easy path to make them meta relevant. It looks like they're going to be fairly strong on their own. They are stronger than starter decks in general, based on what we've seen so far. They also have a price point that is higher than most starter decks as well. It's $50 USD for these Mercurial Heart Recollection decks, or not just Recollection decks. Whereas starters, I think, retail for 15.
Yep.
Which are also an excellent way to get into the game. Those are still super readily available. I've seen lots of starters that that are available still in LGSs on shelves from both Dawn of Ashes and Alchemical Revolution. So those are not going to be quite as like locals ready for the most part. But they're still a great way to jump into the game, especially if you don't want to spend $50 right away. Just spend like $15 or get a buddy and both of you spend $15 or something, get a couple starter decks and jam them into each other and have some fun. And so kind of a couple different price points even to like jump in at. So like, again, like now is just the best time to get into the game. Like there's so many different avenues to jump on, so many different ways to play at the moment. There's lots of people that are hyping up a kind of a PvE, like a multiplayer variant, a cooperative multiplayer variant, which is a really cool way to probably learn the game as well. You probably don't need to like have a super tech hyper competitive deck in order to like go to a tournament and compete. And you can just like grab some friends and figure that out as well. So like it just, there has really not been a better time to start playing Grand Archive. So just jump on it. For how to get your LGS on board, I'm going to let Dan take that because Dan has a ton of experience with that.
Yeah, and I just want to say too, like I think a lot of people will look at games as they're coming out and think like, well, you know, I missed the boat. I should have been there in set one. Now it's going to be way too much to catch up with. But like I couldn't feel farther, away from that sentiment. I think it just, every set has only made the game more enjoyable to play on the base level. Do you have to go pick up everything? No, actually, you don't. You can pick up just the things you want for the champion you like. Those of us who've been playing since set one have gone through metagames that have gotten progressively more wider and interesting. If you started at set one, you actually had to, what I'm saying is when you started at set one, you actually had to wade through the least interesting metagame. And it wasn't bad, but it was the least interesting metagame that Grand Archive has had so far, the least amount of variety, the least amount of options. And as every set has come out now, and with Mercurial Heart, it looks no different. Now you can jump into the game and just go, okay, pick a champion I like, buy the starter deck, buy the Recollection deck, and then play with that, and then go, all right, now what cards do I want? And just go grab the singles and just get going, you know?
Yep.
Now, oh, sorry, do you have something to add to that?
I was going to say, yeah, actually, you just have not missed the boat. And I'm going to take this opportunity. Thank you, Lucian, for giving me this opportunity to tell Cole, you have not missed the boat. Cole, if you're listening, you know who you are.
Yeah, I do know who Cole is too. And Cole has not missed the boat either. Absolutely not. No, this is the time. I mean, this is there. You're not even that far behind. Like you're not. It's just, you just pick a champion you like and just grab some cards and start jamming games. And it's going to be worth it because this game is just that fun. Now, the big question is always, how do you get your LGS into it? So I certainly do have plenty of experience getting smaller TCGs going in LGSs. I will say a couple of things. Number one, it's very dependent on how your LGS is. Things I say have worked for me, maybe things people have tried, or maybe things that LGSs just aren't into in your area. They just don't want to do that. At the end of the day, the LGS they have a profitability that they have to rely on in order to stay in business. And often decisions are made in service of that. And I don't even mean that in like a negative way. I mean, like literally you just, as a business person, you sometimes have to make hard decisions. And, I've had LGS owners that I know who have just gone like, I'm just going to only do Magic. Sorry, I'm just done doing anything that isn't Magic. And I've had the same LGS at different times in their life have been like, tell me what's coming. I'm going to order it. We're going to get it going for you. I don't even care. Don't even tell me what it is. Just tell me with a SKU. I'll order it. And it really just depends on, there's so many factors that we can't account for. Okay. So that's all just to say your mileage may vary on the success of these, but the ways that I like to typically get a game going in the stores, the first thing you have to do is you have to go talk to someone. You have to go talk to the store owner and be like, hi, this game is really good. I am really interested in it. I would love to attend your store weekly and play in events. And I would love to, here's the important part, I would love to pre-order product and order product through you. It's a symbiotic relationship. The customers buy from the store provides the space for the customers, and it usually fails most commonly because one end of that just stops to provide for the other, and then that always ends that way. But I think a lot of people don't realize that certain people will start shopping online or something is like, I can get it $10 cheaper over here, so I'm going to go shop online now. And if the store isn't selling product, then they don't have an incentive to keep stocking product. So you have to go to the LGS, good faith. You have to be like, I would like you to try this game out. I would like to order product through you. And if you can, if this is within your sort of wheelhouse to do, say, I would like to try and show the game to some other people. Would you be open to me hosting a demo night or a demo day some day of the week where I can bring some product in, or we can talk to Weaves of the Shore who can provide demo product? Actually, if you talk to one thing about Grand Archive is you can talk to distributors. If you're, you might get a notepad. You might want a notepad for this. You want to talk to your store and ask if they have Southern Hobby as a distributor. That's a major one for Grand Archive. That's one of the biggest ones in the US. This is for US. If you're outside of the US, I don't know the distributors as well. I know there's Blackfire in Europe. I don't remember the name of the Oceanic distributor. If you're in the US, Southern Hobby is a major one. I believe GTS just picked up Grand Archive as well. Peach State Hobby has had it in the past. And then there's another one called YY Card World, and they're kind of a weird, like someone's basement, I think, in California or something. So I'm not 100% sure about that, but that's an option too, I think. I just don't know. I hope that wasn't me slandering the business, because that was the feeling I got, but I have no idea what's going on. But the major ones are Southern Hobby, I believe GTS, and Peach State as well. And if they have distribution networks, if they have accounts with those distributors, your LGS can contact their reps for the distributors, say, we're looking to host Grand Archive. Can we get demo kits? And the distributors should have demo kits that they can send to you to get going. Then it's just kind of up to you to try and talk to your LGS. Do you have social media? Do you have a place where I can post this and say, hey, I want to show people this game. It's really cool. Can I put a poster up? Can I whip a little, Canva, if you've never used canva.com, it's a free resource to just make some quick graphic design things that look okay. You can grab some Grand Archive card art, slap it on there and say, hey, this is the demo day, come attend and I'll show you how to play this game. Your goal with this is to get ideally 3 people playing the game with you. That's what you want. You want to get to at least 4 people in your area. It's just kind of a magic number where you can start to run Omnidex events, and those people can hopefully find other people. And once you get an event on the schedule, then you get, attend regularly. You get people who start to show up and be like, hey, that looks interesting. The events go on Omnidex, so people who are interested in the area can find them and maybe start attending them as well. But your goal is really like, don't set your sights too high. Just start with, I need to find 3 people who want to play this game with me. Do everything you can, work with your store, make sure when you get those people in, be like, hey, remember, we have to order through the store, because that's how we're going to keep getting stuff stocked in. Make sure you talk to the store about pre-ordering when possible, because the store wants to get that upfront payment so they know how much to order, so you don't end up missing out on stuff. And so they can maybe order a little extra to put on the shelf then. And build it out from there. That's kind of the grassroots approach that I tend to take to doing this kind of thing. I've gotten to the point where I have a lot of people like Taylor who I'll just be like, hey, there's a new game coming out. He'd be like, cool, let's check it out. And that's helpful. But if you're starting from nothing, then you just gotta kind of start to get out there and show the game to people. And the last thing I want to mention is that Grand Archive is working on initiatives to improve this as well. They have something called Grand Archive Academy that's still in a beta phase, where they're actually working with a local store and a rep at that store to send product to that store and also pay for direct targeted advertisements in the local area that basically say, if people, they'll target people who like play other card games on social media, and they'll get an ad that says, if you come to this store on this Saturday, you're going to get to learn the game and you're going to get a bunch of free product to start playing with. And then those have done very well for the test areas so far. And that is something that you could look into as well when that becomes more of an open thing. But the great thing about Grand Archive is once you get going, Omnidex is an incredible thing, an incredible tool for people finding tournaments, for encouraging people to come play, keep playing weekly as well, to keep your store engaged with it. And the store will be able to order their event pack product through Omnidex. So they'll be able to get the product to supply for your prizing for your tournaments. And it all becomes, pretty easy. You just got to kind of start by taking those first steps. I'm done with my monologue now.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Dan. I hope that was helpful for you, Lucian, and all of our other listeners that are looking when to get into Grand Archive and how to get into Grand Archive and how to help get their LGS involved. It was an excellent summary. And yeah, we, thank you very much for your question, Lucian. We very much appreciated it. Like Dan said earlier, you have any other questions you'd like to submit for us to answer on the podcast? Throw them in the comments with hashtag mailbag. Throw them in Dan at the email that he shot earlier. All that good stuff. But I think that about wraps it up for us, right, Dan? We hit all the major notes here. Showed off a bunch of cool cards. Talked about them. There's that design notes article has a bunch more cards that we didn't go over. So if you're still curious about MRC and what's going on in that, there's some extra cards to check out there. A bunch of cards actually in the recollection decks that we didn't talk about yet, just because we're saving that for next week. And actually that's going to be 2 weeks, not next week, 2 weeks from now, we'll be taking that deep dive into that, which is really cool. One thing we did not do was kind of talk about how you can support Maindeck and help out the channel. But just go back to one of our old videos about a fourth of the way or a third of the way through. Dan's got a spiel in there. You'll find it. You know what it is.
Wow, Taylor just stole it from me entirely this episode. That's okay. That's fine. You guys have heard it before too, so that's fine. You gotta give me a pass on this one.
Yep. Yeah, don't worry. We'll be back in 2 weeks, not only with this recollection deck deep dive, but also our main deck shilling. So you do not have to worry about missing that anymore. But anyway, thank you all very much for watching, listening, wherever you're checking this out on your podcast platform of choice. But yeah, that's been it for the recollection step. So thanks everybody, and we'll see you next time.
Bye everyone.